All right, Rebecca, we are going to take a look at your paper. Um, I'm not really sure what that means, but here we go. So MLA format first, you need your last name, page number up here, and then everything else is okay here. You don't have a title, so we need to skip a line, title, skip a line, and then start your paper. I went extra wide on this video. We're going to play a fun game as we look at your paper, Rebecca, called How Much of This is Actually Your Own Writing? And so as I get to certain things, I'm just going to kind of research them and show you what I do when I think a paper has been plagiarized so that you can kind of see what my thinking is as we go through this. So let's look at your introduction first as we look at your paper. All right, so you start off with a quote here from the play. I think it's good that we're going to talk about a disorder when you use a quote about making us mad. I think that's a really great quote to go to. You have some space issues here. There's a space that shouldn't be here, a space that shouldn't be here. You see a space that shouldn't be here. So really think about those spaces and where they're at. So you start with a quote, but then you jump right into what PTSD is. So instead of jumping right into it, explain this quote. Tell us where it's from, so on and so forth, because you don't explain the play until we get all the way down here. So make sure you do that. Also make sure, what do you do when you have a play title? How do you punctuate that correctly? Make sure you do that. All right, the first thing I notice is this quote right here, which obviously you had to look up in order to include in your paper. So right here, word for word from Mayo Clinic, which is one of the websites I told you to get to. Now, I don't mind that you use that quote, obviously, but you need to put quotes around it because it is obviously a direct quote. You need to put quotes around it, and you need to have an in-text citation, which you don't even have a works cited page. So I'm just assuming that this whole thing is plagiarized. So then we get into the topic. Macbeth shows many signs of PTSD, which is good. He has anger, denying lots of things. After Macbeth has done the deed, he can sleep no more, which is sleep deprivation, and then use a quote from that. So I'm not sure if this is one of your main points that you're going to talk about with PTSD, because sleep deprivation was sleep disorder was one of the other disorders you could have done. So I wasn't sure where you're going with this. This close to the end of the introduction, I wouldn't expect a quote in there, but not that you can't use it, but a little off to me. And then you need a period at the end here. He also shows guilt, helplessness, and fear, anxiety, which you have a comma there instead of a period, and you don't have a thesis statement yet. Your thesis statement is going to be this message. What is your grand message of everything? All right, so let's get to your first body paragraph, which I think is about fear. He shows fear, so let's talk about fear. All right, so the fear that you're going to talk about specifically at the beginning, at least, revolves around Macduff, yet you jump into Duncan here right after that. Silly things, Rebecca, that you can fix. Capitalizing Macbeth, making sure that you have punctuation correctly. Just you didn't put in the end quote there. Just silly things like that will take your paper. You're missing a period here, stuff like that. Basically, when I read a student's paper, there are certain sentences that just pop out that doesn't sound like they're writing. So that's what I do. I just go over here. This doesn't sound like you're writing, and lo and behold, there's an exact quote over here on the side. So I know you took that from somewhere else. Stuff like this quote doesn't sound like you while you write, and it certainly doesn't sound like the rest of the paper, and lo and behold, most of that is taken from eNotes.com, another popular destination for students looking to plagiarize. So let's talk about what we can do besides obviously not plagiarize. So I have a strong topic sentence about fear. Talk about some good examples of how he fears in the play. You get the Banquo line, which is good, how he fears Banquo. I don't think he's afraid of going back to the chamber, which is what I think you're looking at here. But then your next thing is about Macduff. His anger may stem from his great fear that Macduff will wrestle power from him. But he doesn't fear Macduff is going to take his power away. He just knows he's supposed to be afraid of him. Beware Macduff, right? So maybe talk about all the people that he fears in this play, which would probably be Banquo and Macduff for the most part. And build your paper around that. You need a transition statement into the next body paragraph. All right, so your next thing is also about fear, displaced aggression. This sentence like that, when I look online and search for it, I mean, certainly right there. And the thing that I look for, Rebecca, is I'm 99% sure you don't even know what catharsis means. So maybe you do, and you could prove that to me. But it's stuff like that that I'm looking for. So you probably get the point by now that, I mean, you just obviously plagiarized a lot of this. But let's continue on so I can try to explain to you what you can do to get better. Here is the beginning of what is illogically a bunch of quotes. I have no idea what you're going for here. I don't know why they're like this. I mean, I guess, sorry. So this is maddened by rage, he often orders the death believing. And then I guess this is kind of stuck in between all these quotes. I don't know, it's a bunch of quotes that don't mean anything. They might actually support, but because you don't include them in the writing, it doesn't make any sense. This is plagiarized. This whole section is plagiarized as well. But again, is this about fear? I don't know what we're doing in this paragraph. So now we're going to talk about insomnia. Is the inability to sleep or stay asleep. Need some in-text citation for this. And then you go on to talk about his paranoia, so on and so forth. And then you use the example from Act 2, which is good, that they woke up, etc. But the thing is about sleep, so why don't you use the passage about he shall sleep no more, or Lady Macbeth tell him he lacks the natures of all sleep, etc. Instead, which is another clue that this is plagiarized, you use two quotes actually from Scene 2. We didn't even read Scene 2 in class. That means you would have had to find it on your own, and I'm thinking that maybe you had to look this up in order to figure out that these quotes were even there. So another reason why I think it was plagiarized, and you had to look up a lot of this stuff as well. All right, so paragraph about guilt. Again, as I start to research some of this stuff, none of this is your own words, really. I could, maybe if I just do all of this, it looks like onlineliterature.com is where you got most of this. So certainly it's not even your own writing, so I'm not even sure how to comment, but I'm going to guess that most of this next one is also plagiarized as well. So you get to the end, got your conclusion. At the end, go overwhelms them and gets the better of them by having the play end of the deaths of both of them. You didn't do anything in the conclusion that you really needed to. No works cited page, so etc. Okay, so here's what we're going to do, Rebecca. 1, we're going to write our paper on our own. 2, you need to be in class so I can help you write this paper. And then we just need to make sure that it's focused and that it follows all the guidelines on the rubric. And then hopefully we'll have a much better paper for me to look at next time. So I say this with utmost hope, and that is I can't wait to see another version of this so I can actually grade something that is yours.